let's refit an 1860s writing habit. Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin, and on this channel I teach old-fashioned sewing skills. Mostly we copy originals to the best of our ability using historical techniques. And I have had this writing habit 2018, maybe 6 years, 7 years. It barely fit then, and I know it's not going to fit now. So there's a slight possibility, that I may need to have a habit in December. And quite possibly my size saddle needs to be fixed. So we're going to do that in this channel too. We're going to maybe figure that out, hopefully. But yeah, I have an entire writing ensemble that I made several years ago, including a hat. That's not going to stay on my head either. We'll figure it out. Gloves. I even made gloves. Like, I made gloves. I think it's the one and only time I ever made gloves, and I swore I'd never do it again. But like, I made these, everybody. Like, flat out made them. They're little writing gauntlets. I never attempted making gloves before. I've never attempted making gloves since. There's probably a really good reason that this is my only pair ever done. And if nothing else, we might have to retrim it completely in different colors, in which case I would have to take the braiding off of this and then also the bow off the hat, which the hat needs to be worked on anyway. And I also have a little pouch that was in an illustration from the period, and I don't quite recall what it's for. I always thought it'd be like cute for like little horse snacks and little treats and stick them in there. But this is the habit. Oh, is that separate? That's a choice that I made. Okay. I can already tell you this is not made with the best historical accuracy. I didn't know as much as I know now. This whole thing is lined in velveteen. What was I thinking? And it's bag lined. It's bag lined. Modern lining. I know I knew better. I know that I knew better. Okay. We're gonna do some work. I'm gonna put on a chemise and a corset, and we're going to... I did machine buttonholes. I know better than that. We're gonna try this on and see how bad the damage is. But from right now, just based on how it looks and the whole interior of it, I'm gonna have to take this whole thing apart. Hopefully we have the fabric to put it back together again. Alright, let's see how bad this is. I'm expecting not to be able to fit into it. I didn't face the skirt either. Okay. I made some choices with this outfit. Alrighty. I mean, I can get it. Oh, it's kind of tight across the back. Okay. This is actually not going to be as bad as I thought. At least this portion. It's not going to fit though. Hook and eye tape is pretty bad. I mean, that's not terrible. It's better than what I thought it was going to be. And yes, we have checks there in the background. Is it really going to fit over my bust? Ha! It's going to fit over the bust. It's not going to fit down on the under bust, but I'm actually really impressed. But that's that. I think the skirt goes first and then this goes over top. Yeah, I remember. This was based off an illustration in Godey's. Now I gotta dig through my wool and see if I have any extra of this. I'm pretty sure that I do. Okay, this is mostly good. It's gonna be a complete work apart. Not because I can't refit it the way it is, but because it's made so poorly and I can do better now. So we're going to do better now. So now that we had to redo the whole thing anyway, do I like the red and the green, which I never really liked, or I'm pretty sure I have some purple in there, which would probably look really good, but then I'd have to redo all the braiding. I have gray. I think now comes the portion of the video where I go off and do some more research to figure out exactly what I want this to look like. I also technically have a whole length of wine colored wool to make another writing habit, but if I can get this 1860s one to work, then I'll use that one to make another time frame. I'm going to town tomorrow. I could go to buy Joann's and see what other colors they have, but they would probably have, oh, they might have like a wine color. I think that would look better than the cherry red, because it's the cherry red part that I don't like. I'll consider it. I'll put that into consideration. extra fabric, trim fabric. I need to go look at period writing habits, and I need to go look at the illustration I originally based this off to get the colors. I need to go look at period writing habits to decide if I'm going to stay with this style or go with something different. Maybe that was it. Maybe it's just those 4 things. And then I guess take this whole thing apart, because that's what's going to happen. Which is fine. It's not, I figured it was going to be a gut. Also, a little sewing hack. And yes, I still am in my chemise. Hampers. Like I always say, save all your scraps, don't throw anything away, because they didn't. Laundry hampers. This is how I keep everything. These are silk scraps from every project I've ever made of silk. This is where my wool goes. That's velvet and trims, and I have a whole nother one for linen, cotton, and then etc. like modern fabrics. So I have 6 little hampers that are beautiful and wonderful and keep all of my scraps in place. When I have a project like this, all I gotta do is go to the right bin, pull it all out, and search through it. Is that really a dress sleeve? This is a whole bodice. I know what dress that goes to, actually. Oh, I like these sleeves. But yeah, we have extra fabric. Just a little bit, but that is more than enough. So I'm commencing with taking the linen shirt off, which I did find the original illustration. Turns out it's black. The entire thing is black. I looked back on my old blog post, and apparently I just saw cherry red a lot in conjunction with writing habits, and so that's why I trimmed the whole thing of cherry red, but that wasn't actually a illustration choice. And I'm looking at a bunch of original writing habits. Although the written sources are talking a lot about cherry red writing habits, I'm not seeing them actually made up, which could be a sample size issue, and it could just be another example of what was recommended isn't always the thing that was done. What I think I'm going to do is I'm debating right now whether I want to trim the whole thing just in black and have green and black, which I do have a later 1860s writing habit that does show that, and I kind of like that effect. Or if I do want to do something a little bit more colorful, I'm leaning towards just green and black. I think that'll be a good thing. And then we'll take the trim off of the gloves and all of that. We'll do like a nice white plume feather and the hat. I might have to remake that hat because I'm noticing the brim, not the brim, I think it's the crown. One of the parts is too small, so I probably need to redo that hat anyway. This may end up being a 2-part series because this is going to be a lot. Somebody got his rabies shot yesterday and is not feeling good. Like, we're not eating, we're kind of lethargic, so I'm hanging out with him so that he's not alone. As of right now, I think I can get the shirt to fit just fine. I'm going to have to take out a few darts, of course, reposition some darts, but I have plenty of fabric here, so I'm not concerned about that. I bound the bottom and top edges, which I'm not sure on. I'm going to go look at the bottom edge again. The top edge is fine. The only thing is I am missing a collar that should go there. Portion here, I'm taking off the hook and eye tape. All the hook and eye tape is period choice. This particular hook and eye tape is not. So we're going to take that out entirely. Probably just put in regular hooks and eyes. And I think I'm going to take this entirely apart, and then I probably fill the seams as well, because it is a shirt and that is technically underwear. And then if I want to, I can do some of the braiding in some black, because I can probably get myself some black. I repleated the skirt, so that is all nice and should fit now. What I'm doing now is I'm doing a waistband we have not actually done on the channel. I don't see it a lot, but I see it especially in the later part of the American Civil War, like 1864, 1865, and then later. And I like it for bulky fabrics. This is a little bit more of a bulkier wool than I would typically choose for like a dress weight. But instead of doing, because what I had, I'll pull this over, I had a 2-layer wool. Now, when you fold over that edge, of course, that creates 4 layers, and that's a little bit bulky. And around the waistline, you don't want anything really bulky. You're trying to, make your waist look a little smaller. That's a lot of the, dropped arm side, the way the sleeves are. That's the purpose of those, is to make the waist look smaller. And so this waistband is taking a very thin fabric, such as, regular lining cotton, and you're whipping it to the edge here, and I'll fold this over as well, and whip it like that. Even though it's a 4 layers still, it's a lot thinner than the 4 layers of wool. is also really good if you're really short on fabric. So if you had a waistband that was folded over, and this is all just a little bit out of my comfort zone because I've never actually seen an original writing habit in person. So I'm not sure how things were put together necessarily. And so I'm pulling up directions for how to do things. And then I found an 1868 source with patterns, which is, again, too late. But at the very least, I took the directions in there. I'm like, okay, we do this, we do this, we do this. There's one earlier reference to facing the bottom of the skirt with leather, which I'm debating doing. I think that's a really fun, unique thing I haven't tried before. And I'm pretty sure I have the leather to do that. I just don't know if I want to put the effort of sewing leather, because sewing leather can be a little bit difficult. And what I think we're going to do for time purposes is just do the habit, and we'll do all the accessories next time, because the more I look, the more accessories I'm going to need. Alright, sewing the waistband to the skirt, in which case after this all I gotta do is put hooks and eyes in and figure out if I have enough leather for the bottom. But while we're doing this real quick, I thought I would read to you the description of the writing habit that I based this pattern from. And it says, the latest style of writing dresses. We present our readers with two views of a novel and stylish writing habit. It is made of black cloth. Now remember, that's 19th century. Cloth just means wool. It is a word for wool. So don't read that and assume you can make it whatever fabric you want because it says cloth. When it says just cloth, it means wool, unless there is a descriptive word to go along with it, like cotton cloth or silk cloth. It just means cloth. It just means wool. Okay. Trimmed with a fluted worsted braid and large gilt buttons. The sleeves are close and made with the gauntlet cuff. The habit is made with revers, very short in the waist, in order to show the white cashmere vest trimmed with a fluting of the same. A black velvet belt, and is fastened in front by a large gilt buckle. The cravat is of scarlet velvet, worn over a standing linen collar. The hat is of black felt, trimmed with a black feather and a scarlet bow. Hair is caught up in an invisible net, the exact shade of the hair. And that's the end of it. But since I'm not starting with black cloth, I think I will just trim it entirely in black. Alright, we are using the 1911 machine today, mostly because my modern machine is being used by my husband in the other room, and the 1860 machine is, well, not restored yet. It's also on display in my husband's museum, so can't use that one. This is my best option. I mean, I could obviously use the 1870s machine because it does give off a chain stitch, which would be appropriate for this. But so is a lock stitch, so we're just gonna go with this. It was easier to get to. And I am lining it in just brown cotton. I have lots of leather, not enough to do a whole facing, and what I do have is rather thick, so I opted not to do that. And after a secondary look, so the reference I have for leather would be a written source saying, hey, it's a good idea to do this. But all of the extant ones I could find did not mention leather at all. So I think it was, in my personal opinion, there are two types of people who write advice books. The self-righteous, everyone should do it my way, pious, I'm right in everything type of person. And the people who have pet peeves, who just plagiarize the first type of person in everything except for their one pet peeve, and they write an entire chapter about their pet peeve. And I'm wondering if this is just one of those instances where this was given as advice, but no one actually followed it. Are y'all scared by the machine noise? So now we come to the real education portion of this video, which is when you have a dress like this, and a little bit of extra fabric usually, and if you don't have any extra fabric, you can always pull 2 or 3 inches from the skirt, just take a whole strip, and that'll usually be what you need. But how do you get it to fit you? So what I do is I take my normal pattern, so this is a pattern I drafted myself, and we're going to fit it on top of this new one. So already I can see this is my side back. It's almost exact. In fact, if I took, instead of a 1/2 inch seam allowance like I have allowed on my pattern piece, if I did just a 1/4 inch seam allowance halfway up and then half, then that would be this piece without having to add anything. But as I'm looking at this back, there's my 1/2 inch. It's just going to be a little bit over. So instead of, you know, being here, my seam will be here. And I'm okay with that. It will fit. Is it ideal? No, because you do typically want a very small section in the back. You don't want it to be this wide part of the whole curved back. Things make your waist look smaller because of that curved seam there. So I could fix it, and I'm debating it. Do I want to just take a 1/4 inch seam allowance and cut this down to where it is further down? You know what? Let's go ahead and do that. I don't like these scissors, but we're going to use them. So I'm matching up this, which matches up pretty well actually. I'm going to cut this down. And just remember to take a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I don't like these scissors. Ugh, I actually hate these scissors. And even though I need to add a lot to my waist measurement, you'll see that you'll have to add some areas and subtract in others. So it's not always just an add. In some places it's going to be a subtract, or maybe a subtract. Alright. So that'll just be my reminder to take a smaller seam allowance. Now anywhere there is excess, like right here, I'm going to trim off. And then there will be places that are too small, like this. This is where my little bit of extra fabric comes into play. I'm going to piece out this section and make a little bit area here on both sides, and then I can cut around it. And there's my little pieces. And you have a ready-made dress with appropriate lining. You can also, of course, do this with the lining, but you don't have to. Find my good scissors. Yeah, I need to find my good scissors. Where did they go? Now I'm cutting new lining, so I can go ahead and cut new lining to match this. By the time we get to seam allowance and all that, none of that's really going to show. But I have this piece and this piece good now. Now the bulk of my fitting is going to be on this piece, and I knew that going into this. And that is 2 very different shapes. This is fine because, again, I shortened that bodice anyway, so that's not a problem. And actually this front piece isn't a problem either, because these are parts that fall back like that. And I can see this is directly on my little line here. So I would just not have much of a turnover, which is fine. It looks like this is going to fit more or less. I'm not going to even worry about that. That's not much to worry about. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I put a small tuck. It's going to be easier to do a straight piece here. It'll be under the arm so no one can really see it. You see all sorts of weird fitting things happen underneath the arm. And then I can add a little strip right down there, and that'll be fine. For some reason one side is longer than the other, so it looks like I'm going to have to do more fitting on one side than I did with the other. All bodies are different shapes, and sometimes your body from 5, 6, 7 years ago is not the body shape you have today, and that's fine. Okay, yeah, I don't have to add any here now. It's literally just going to be a strip that is, accounting for seam allowance, at least 3 1/4. I can probably cut it 3 and just do a smaller seam allowance too. So a 3 inch strip by 8 inch, and I just need 2 of them. If the original garment did not come with piping, but you're in an era like the mid-19th century that does piping, you can also take that 3 inch strip and cut it bias. There'll be a lot of piecing involved. Alright, so now I need to put a little bit of velvet facing on here, because when we fold it back we want to not see the lining, we want to see velvet. So, because I've never seen an original writing habit, we're going to make some educated guesses. Namely, using historical techniques to give us the effect that we want. So while I've never seen a writing habit, I know that a lot of writing habits are based off of men's clothing in that style. And I happen to have a husband who is a tailor and knows how to put together men's 19th century clothing, and I have seen him do this. So we're gonna use a 19th century men's technique to get this female garment. So what I'm starting to do is just line that up. I've only ever seen him do this by hand, so I'm gonna assume that is the proper way to do this. Last time I backlined it because I knew that something had to happen to where you could flip it over, but I couldn't figure out what the historical technique was. And so yeah, there actually are benefits for knowing guy stuff occasionally. It's the first time it's actually popped up that it's useful, but there are reasons that it can be very useful to know these things. In fact, because I'm pulling it in, I probably should clip these corners. And this is going to get folded in, and we're going to tack that just to the lining as well. I probably could cut that off a little bit more even. Just to make sure I cut the other side the same way. And in just a second I'll show you, I have been finishing these edges. A lot of nicer dresses in this time period are starting to have their seams finished, just with overcasting. And then I saw a 72, I think it was 1872, writing habit where you could see the inside and the seams are clearly overcast. So we're going to kind of continue that same thing. So now I can pull that back in just a moment and we'll get that look. Alright, getting a little bit of hand work done. So we're going to start again by whipping down the edges that are all raw. The way I like to do piping is sometimes I'll sew the piping by machine, sometimes I'll do it by hand. I just chose it by hand this time. I find that a lot of machine stitching in this area makes it really bulky and then makes your arm's eyes stick out in a very unflattering way. And even occasionally when I look at originals, I will see that even machine stitched garments are often hand sewn at the sleeve. And I think it's for this reason. At the very least, I want to put the piping in by hand. And this conveniently gives me a nice little stitching line so that when I stitch my sleeve in, I don't have to guess where my piping is. You could probably get the same effect by bag lining it, kind of. I don't know, I've always seen my husband do it this way, and the one or two originals I have looked at in men's clothes were hand stitched. So we're gonna go with that. In regards to the piping I did a second ago, I did take out the piping I had in there, even though I had piping in there. I did take it out entirely for a good reason, which would be the piping I had in there was yarn weight. It was very thick, and when you look at period piping cord, I also need to figure out what I'm going to do, where to go, with this little portion. I do have two little things we're going to braid. Alright, I bought some trim, and it is a poly cotton trim. So trim is one of those things that's very hard to get the real stuff, and if you do get the real stuff, it's usually because it's antique. And I thought long and hard about it and realized that with writing, that can be a very dirty and messy and potentially damaging task to textiles, and I couldn't bring myself to do that to an original. And so I am substituting a modern poly cotton to protect originals, which is not usually my go-to. I usually try to do the best that I can, and I definitely try not to do anything with synthetics, but because it's just a little bit of trim, it'll be okay. Getting this piping put onto the waist. Also, I did have to add a little bit to the bottom of the waist just because it was coming up to like a little higher than I wanted it to. I only had to add like an inch, but that 1 inch does seem to make a difference, so I'm hoping it doesn't look too bad. And yes, I did do darts as well, so I did a fitting in the back. I did a little bit of braiding, which I'm going to do more braiding in just a minute. But I had these little flaps pulled in and sewn down last time, so I think we're going to go ahead and do that again. Might as well, I suppose. I think the next step I'm going to do is to take our little trim and put it all across the bottom edge, which is what's showing in the original image. So we'll go ahead and put trim down, and this is going to go again entirely all the way around the whole bodice. So waistline up the front, around the whole neck, around the back, and then back down. It's gonna go everywhere. Alright, I'll finish that in a moment. Let's work on some braiding, which I do have a design still on here. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing the braiding. I was kind of hoping to not do the braiding, even though I do enjoy braiding, just for time's sake. But then I saw that the marks were still here, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm having to do braiding. This is not a pit. I know we said accessories will come into the next video, but the habit shirt kind of does belong with the habit, so we are going to get this done. First step is to fill all of these seams because they are left raw and you can see they are raveling a bit. Technically the very first step was a whole lot of ironing, but I spared you that. Which I quite honestly measured my neckline. I cut a strip that was 2.5 inches, and then I folded it in half, and then I stitched a little 1-inch bias strip on the edge as well, and that's what I'm turning under to hide any raw edges. Now there's a ruffle on the bottom of the illustration, which I think I might go ahead and add just for a little bit of pretty effect. I'm going to make my life easy, and I'm going to borrow the modern machine and use the hemming foot to hem myself a ruffle for that, because that sounds like way more fun. Alright, we're winding down on the habit shirt. I still have to do buttons and buttonholes on the main habit, and then I have to do hooks and eyes on this habit, and I had to do hooks and eyes on the habit shirt, which I'm going to wait because I'm going to an event this weekend. And I've just decided, instead of bringing a big project to work on, I'm going to bring like all the little things that need like 10 minutes of work and actually have time to work on them. So I get to do all that sort of fun stuff. Alright, let's put on a riding habit. So I have on basically normal underpinnings is what you would wear. So chemise, I hate drawers, probably should be wearing them. Probably will wear them for riding if I get to that point. But corset, my normal corset I can mend just fine, so I don't need a special riding corset. And then 2 petticoats, an under petticoat and then a topmost petticoat that is decently long. Again, trousers made from the actual skirt fabric would be probably the most common by the 1860s, but I didn't have any more of this fabric, and I hate fabric for my legs, so that wasn't going to happen. And there's a cat with zoomies running around, so let's see, I think dress shirt first. Let me actually leave this undone because it's got to go over the skirt. Go. That fits. See, this is kind of a nice look. It's not a correct look. I'm still undressed. This is my shirt. that was still caught up. And do the cuffs so they don't get caught up in the sleeves. And the bodice. Let's see if this fits. My corset's too big for me, so I do need to take it in, and if I did, I could probably lace up a little bit more. Oh, this is gonna fit. This is gonna be no problem. All right. Thread there. Pull these sleeves out a little bit. All right, there's the habit. It fits, which it didn't before, so that's a very nice thing. I still feel like it needs a pop of color. At the very least, it's authentic. I do think, because a lot of the things I've been reading about writing habits, you can have a little necktie that is a pop of color made of velvet, and we are going to get to accessories in a whole other video, because otherwise this video would be ridiculously long. I think this is actually going to be 3 parts. It's going to be cat has zoomies. Again, it's going to be habit. Part 1's going to be the habit, which is of course this video. Part 2 is going to be the accessories. So we're going to completely redo that hat. We're going to retrim the little belt pouch thing, and then the gloves. Make sure I have all of that together. And then part 3 will be restoring the saddle and making sure I have all my tack together. That may have to be split into 2 videos as well. So this may be a 4-parter, it may just be a 3-parter. I'm not entirely sure yet. I did take the saddle to a friend of mine at an event, and they restore antique saddles for their own use, and Emily rides side saddles. So like they're very used to dealing with antique side saddle. And they told me what to do. I kind of need to take the whole thing apart. I think it's called flocking, the padded stuff underneath. It's very much squished down, and it needs to be higher on one side than the other because you're kind of sitting off to the side. And then the leather's in really poor condition, so I will probably need to redo that, and then copy the beautiful little pattern, stitching pattern on there. And then I have new billet straps because the billet straps are completely gone. And then I will need a new stirrup strap, mostly because I don't trust the antique one. There is all that. It's probably going to be a kind of a complete saddle rebuilding, and here's Lady. And so that'll be a fun video. I've never done anything like this before, but Jess did like really work with the tree, and he said the tree is solid. I probably don't have any cracks in there. So it's a good saddle. I did good buying that off eBay several years ago. So, hi. So that is a good thing. At least I have a solid saddle. I just need to do a bunch of work on it, which means buying the leather. Because I have a bunch of leather, but I don't have anything in that dark brown that is that light. I probably have a piece or 2 that is super heavy, and then I have a lot of light stuff that's black. I don't have anything in that dark brown. But yeah, this is definitely a good part 1. I have a fitting habit, which is super helpful. I mean, I now saw how it would not fit before, so the fact that it actually works and we're good is fantastic. So I'm very thrilled with this. I'm looking forward to doing the rest of it and taking that lovely bright red braiding off of everything and figuring out what else I'm going to do to trim. I'm probably going to use the same trim on everything, at least on the gloves. I don't know if I need anything on the pouch. We'll figure all that out at that point. Yeah, this is my riding habit. It is done. It fits. And we're one step closer to be able to actually go riding again. So this is fun. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.